In this lesson, we're going to explore some model prep features to prepare this model for machining. So in other words, we'll be capping some of these surfaces, creating fillets in some areas, and actually applying some model prep features to change this model. We'll first explore the Fillet Tool, and we've done this before, but just as a recap, I can go to the Solids tab and click on Constant Fillet, and then pick a fillet, for example, this outside edge or this face. If I click on that face and click OK, I can type in whatever size fillet I want. Now I'm going to hit cancel here because I'm not going to create a fillet, but if you did want to remove fillets using the model prep function and then create additional fillets, you can certainly do that. I am, however, going to use the model prep tab and use the push-pull function. This push-pull function will allow me to modify some of the faces of this file. So as an example, we may have a scenario where the customer asks us to remove this feature here. They don't want this open slot. So the way push-pull works is you select the face you want to push or pull, and then you simply can push or pull on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snap it right up to this edge here and click OK. I could have also typed in a value, but you'll notice that by simply pushing, or in this case pulling on this surface, it filled in that void. So I click OK, and let's go back to isometric view and continue on with this model. Let's clean up some of our levels since we haven't done that yet. So for example, right now level 1 is the active level with one entity on it, but it's not named. So to see what's on this level, let's make it the inactive level, or in other words, let's make 20 the active level, then we can hide what's on level 1. And of course, that solid is on level 1. So let's rename this level to chain guard. So this makes more sense as this is the actual level that contains this file called a chain guard. Now level 20, which came in as guard, so that was the name of the level that came in when we brought in this IGES file. Let's rename this to something else. So what is on this level? Right now there's one entity on it, and I'm guessing that that is this level. We can check by making level 1 active and then hiding what's ever on level 20, and sure enough, that disappears. And if you also recall, if we uncheck the ignore blanked entities, you'll see that we have 264 entities on this level. So what's going on here? These are the entities that were brought in with the IGES file. To take a look at these entities, we can go to the Home tab, and under blank, I can choose unblank. And by unblanking, you'll see that these are all of the blanked entities that came in with that file. So I could select them all using Control A and then hit End Selection. So now they're shown. And of course I can now go in here and say, okay, ignore blanked entities. And it makes sense that this doesn't change because these entities are no longer blanked. So some people question what they should do with this geometry. Personally, I keep them blanked. Or if you don't like using the blank function, put them all on a level, let's call it level 1000 or something, and call it junk geometry. In any case, it's geometry that you can go back to later on, if needed, to repair something. In this case, if I really wanted to, I could also window select it all and hit delete on my keyboard. So now there's nothing on this level. So we're going to rename this level to surfaces, because in the coming steps we're going to be creating surfaces to patch up holes, and those surfaces will go on this level. And at this point we'll also make it the active level so the surfaces go on there. And I did notice here that when I selected everything to delete, I also deleted that solid. So let's just hit undo here, because that was a mistake on my part. I'm going to uncheck this. So now that solid is hidden. Now let's window select and hit delete. So as you can see, if I had saved there, that would have been a costly error. So now let's turn it back on. So we're back to one entity, which makes sense. That window select also got rid of that arc, which was fine. And we should be ready to continue. So the next thing we're going to do is clean up these features here by adding surfaces to them. So on the Surfaces tab, we have a few options here. We have Flat Boundary, we have Trim to Curves, we also have Fill Holes. And Fill Holes is a great tool because you simply select the face you want and then move over to the edge and it fills it. And keep in mind, since we're on level 20, that surface will be put right there. So let's go back to the Fill Holes tab. We'll do the same thing here. And while we're at it, we'll do the same thing up here and the same thing here. Because when we rough this part, we want to rough the outside shape of it, and we don't necessarily want the toolpaths to be going into these areas. And of course, if we did, we would allow it, but in this case, we don't have to, and these surfaces will protect the tool from going into these areas. Next, let's focus on this area here. So I want to cap this area off because when we rough it, I don't want the tool to go way down into this area. So the way I see this is there's three sections. There's a section up top, a section down below, and both those sections are flat, and then this curved section in the middle. So let's focus on the top area first. I'm going to change my Z value to that point right there, which is minus 0.078. And I'm going to use the wireframe curve one edge. I'm going to select these edges here. And again, I'm just creating wireframe geometry that I can then use for surface creation. And when you get to the edges here, it's a good habit to investigate the corners and the intersections to make sure you're not missing anything. Because again, this was an imported file and you could have a very sliver face that was not caught using the repair functions, and it could exist in your model still. That looks good, so I'll click OK, and then we'll click the line endpoint function to go from right there over to here. And what I like to do before I continue is hold down the Shift key and click on the wireframe and make sure that I have an entire shape here selected. That tells me that this should be a continuous loop. Let's do the bottom section as well by clicking on the Z button and changing my level to down here. And we'll go back into the wireframe tab, curve one edge. We'll go from here. We want to make sure we get these edges right here as well. And when we're done, we'll click OK. And then again, I'm going to use the line endpoints function to go from here over to here. So now in the Surfaces field, I'm going to choose this option called Flat Boundary. And Flat Boundary prompts you for a chain. And when you select the chain and click OK, it simply puts a surface in that boundary. So we'll do the same thing up here. And we'll click OK. And the surfaces get created. Now if they didn't, you might have missed a small area in here. Or over here, you might have grabbed that area by accident. But you'll see the result here. And just to double check things, we can make level 1 the active level and then hide level 20. And all of those surfaces and that wireframe disappear. So finally, let's focus on this inside area here. And there's a bunch of different ways of creating this geometry. We're going to focus on one here, but you could use a loft. You could use a net surface. There are some different options that you could explore. I'm going to choose the net option. So the net option needs 4 pieces of geometry. So I'm going to go to the wireframe tab and click on curve one edge. However, since this is a 3D curve, I'm going to change my 2D construction mode to 3D. I'm going to click on this edge and that edge. And click OK. And now if I go to the Surfaces tab, I can choose Net. And in this case, I'm going to choose Single. And I did notice that before I go in here, I have a gap down here that I probably missed. So let's cancel out of this. Go back into wireframe, curve one edge, and grab this edge here. Now we should be good. So in the Surfaces tab, we'll go to Net. And it's going to utilize a different chain for every side. So this is one chain, this is one chain. However, this chain down here has two edges. So we have to be cautious about that. So I'm going to go to 3D, and I'm going to do single, and this is a single. Select chain 2 is a single. And select chain 3 is actually going to be a partial. It's going to start here, and it's going to end here. And then for chain 4, it'll be single, and it'll be that. And when I click OK, it creates a surface for me using the surface net function. And I'm going to accept OK here. Now, just as an example, what you can also do is in your Surfaces tab, you can create surfaces from solid. So for example here, we could select just a face. So we're not going to select the solid, just a face, there, and click OK. And now we have a surface here, a surface there, a surface there, and a surface there. And there are other tools in here that can be used to fill in the holes of that surface. And again, that's just another method to create this area in here. And finally, we have this option down here. Now this gets a little more complicated, but let's explore some options here. What we need to do here is create flat geometry that we can then create a flat surface here, just like we did up here, and then the same thing down here. One of the methods is using the model prep split solid faces function. And by doing so, I can choose the flow lines field. And let's see how this works. It says select a solid face to be split. So I'm going to select this face. And notice this line moves back and forth, and it's a vertical line. That's because flow lines is set to U. If I change it to V, now it's more horizontal. And I can go up here, and I can snap it right to that line, or that intersection. When I click OK, and then click OK, now this face gets split. So this is a great utility because now I can extract wireframe geometry from here, drag it over to there, and I can cap this area with a surface. Same thing down here. So let's go and do that. We'll use the Z button again, and I'll change my Z level to here. And I'll change my construction plane to 2D. Go to wireframe, curve one edge, that edge, that edge, and that edge. And while I'm here, let's click OK, turn on line endpoints, and we'll go from here. And notice it grabbed the circle, which I did not want, so I'm going to hit escape. Go from there to there. Now we'll change the Z value down to the bottom, which is right here. And I'm going to go back into curve one edge. And when I'm done there, I'll use another line endpoint to go from this endpoint over to here. So now let's go to the Surfaces tab, and we'll do the flat boundary like we did before. And since my construction plane option is not set here, and since I have single selected, it gets confused. So let me unselect that, go to C-plane, go to a full chain, and select this. So there's my flat boundary, and we'll do the same thing down here. So now, just like before, I'm going to change this back to 3D. I'm going to go to wireframe, curve one edge, and we'll make sure we select the individual edges here. And there is a small edge here. And then down here and up here. So again, let's use that net surface again. And let's start from here. This will be a single For entity 2, it'll be partial from here to there. From 3, it'll be a single. And for 4, it'll be a partial. And when I click OK, we get the surface. But as you can see, that surface is nice. We'll click OK. And all those surfaces are on level 20, except for the last few, which, again, I wasn't paying attention, and we saw that they went to level 1. So let's see what's on level 1. It's all of these in here. So let's do this. Let's turn off level 20. So everything that's not the solid should be moved to level 20. So let's go to our color field on quick masks and say all orange and all blue is going to be moved to level 20. We're going to move it, click OK. So now you'll see that we have the solid on level 1 and all of our surfaces and other geometry on level 20. So as you can see, there's a lot of tools within the Model Prep and the Surfaces tabs to create geometry to help you for machining. So we're going to use these surfaces and this geometry in later lessons when we program this part.